The lights dimmed, and for a brief second, the entire auditorium felt like it was holding its breath. A thin boy in worn-out shoes stepped onto the stage, clutching an old, slightly cracked guitar. His hands trembled, not just from fear, but from years of struggle that had brought him to this very moment. No one in the audience knew his story yet, but something about his presence felt heavy, like he carried a world far bigger than himself. His name was Daniel. He came from a place where dreams didn't grow easily, where survival came before passion, and where music was considered a luxury no one could afford. He lived with his mother in a small, crumbling house at the edge of a crowded neighborhood. His father had left years ago, leaving behind silence and unpaid bills. Since then, Daniel's mother worked long hours washing clothes for others, her hands rough and cracked, her smile fading a little more each day. But Daniel had music. It started when he found a broken radio in a trash pile. He fixed it using scraps and curiosity, and one night, he heard a song that changed everything. The melody of Hotel California drifted through the static, haunting and beautiful. He didn't understand all the lyrics, but he felt them. That song became his escape, his teacher, and his dream. Without formal training, without lessons, Daniel practiced every single day. He borrowed an old guitar from a neighbor who barely used it. The strings were rusted, the body chipped, but to Daniel, it was priceless. His fingers bled as he learned chords, his voice cracked as he tried to match the notes, but he never stopped. Even when neighbors complained about the noise, even when his mother gently asked him to rest, he kept going. Because deep down, he believed that one day, someone would listen. Years passed, and that belief was tested again and again. At school, he was mocked for his worn clothes and quiet nature. Some kids laughed when they heard him sing, calling it pointless. Teachers told him to focus on realistic goals. There were days when doubt crept in, whispering that maybe they were right. But every night, when the world grew quiet, Daniel picked up his guitar and sang. Not for applause, not for recognition, but because it was the only way he knew how to breathe. Then one day, everything changed. A local talent show announced auditions for a national stage, a chance to perform in front of judges and millions of viewers. It felt impossible. The application fee alone was more than what his family could spare. Daniel almost didn't try, but his mother saw something in his eyes that she hadn't seen in years, a spark, a fragile but determined hope. Without telling him, she worked extra hours, skipped meals, and saved just enough to cover his entry. When she handed him the money, her voice was soft but firm. "This is your moment," she said. "Don't let fear take it away." The audition day arrived, and Daniel felt like he didn't belong. The waiting room was filled with polished performers, confident singers with expensive instruments and professional training. He sat quietly in a corner, clutching his guitar, trying to steady his racing heart. When his name was finally called, his legs felt heavy. Each step toward the stage echoed louder than the last. The judges looked at him with curiosity, perhaps even doubt. He could feel the weight of their expectations, the pressure of the moment pressing down on him. "What will you be singing today?" one judge asked. Daniel swallowed hard. Hotel California. A few raised eyebrows. It was a bold choice, a song known for its complexity and emotion. The room grew silent. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and began to play. The first few notes were soft, almost fragile. But then something shifted. His voice, though imperfect, carried a raw honesty that cut through the silence. It wasn't just singing, it was storytelling. Every word held pain, hope, longing. Every note felt lived. As he continued, the room transformed. The audience leaned in, captivated. The judges exchanged glances, their skepticism fading into surprise, then admiration. There was something undeniable about Daniel's performance. It wasn't polished or perfect, but it was real. And real is rare. Midway through the song, Daniel opened his eyes. For the first time, he saw the audience, not as strangers, but as people who were listening. Truly listening. His fear melted away, replaced by a quiet confidence. He wasn't just a poor boy anymore. He was a voice. By the final chorus, the entire room was still. No whispers, no distractions, just him and the music. When the last note faded, there was a brief moment of silence. Then the applause erupted. It wasn't just loud, it was overwhelming. People stood up, clapping, cheering, some even wiping away tears. The judges looked visibly moved. One of them leaned forward, eyes shining. "That wasn't just a performance," she said softly. "That was a story." Daniel stood frozen, unsure of what to do, his heart pounding. Another judge smiled and reached for something on the table. The golden buzzer. For a split second, time seemed to slow. Then, with a firm press, the buzzer was hit. Golden confetti exploded into the air, raining down like a dream come true. The audience roared louder than ever, and Daniel stood there, stunned, as tears filled his eyes. He looked up, as if trying to make sense of it all, as if asking whether this was real. Backstage, his mother watched through a screen, her hands covering her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, it had all led to this moment. Daniel didn't just win a chance to move forward in the competition. He proved something far greater. He proved that talent doesn't need perfection to shine. He proved that dreams can survive even in the harshest conditions. He proved that a voice, no matter how small it starts, can echo across the world if it's true. In the weeks that followed, his story spread. People connected with his journey, inspired by his resilience. He continued to perform, each time growing stronger, more confident, but never losing the raw emotion that made him special. And though the stage grew bigger, the lights brighter, and the applause louder, Daniel never forgot where he came from. Because that's what gave his voice its soul. In the end, it wasn't just about a golden buzzer or a single performance. It was about a boy who refused to give up, who turned pain into music, and who reminded the world that sometimes, the most powerful voices come from the quietest places. And somewhere, in a small, humble home, a broken radio still sat on a shelf, a silent witness to the moment when a dream first began.